This is the Strong is a Mindset podcast, episode number 139. If you need help changing how you eat, I've got some easy tools you can start using today. This is the Strong is a Mindset podcast, where you'll learn how to build both a strong body and a strong mind by eating, moving, and thinking. I'm your host, physician, personal trainer, certified health coach, and certified life coach, Carrie Holland. Hey, how are you? What's new? What's good? So, what's good here? We are going to talk about tools in your toolbox for changing your eating habits. So my goal today is to give you a number of ideas to consider that will help you change the way you eat. And here's where the inspiration for this episode is coming from. So it's actually coming from my own coaching mistakes. What I have realized after years of coaching clients is that I was going about it incorrectly. I would help clients create an eating plan, but the plan was too much. It was too many things all at once. And so, after a bit of self-evaluation and looking at my processes, I realize now that the reason my clients are successful is because they do one or maybe two changes at a time at most. They do not try to overhaul their habits in one fell swoop. They don't try to go from 0 to 60. Instead, the clients who make the most headway changing their lifestyle, they take a more stepwise, slower, focused approach. And what I will say is that this often takes some trial and error in order to become apparent. So I can think of one client in particular. We just met yesterday, and she has made amazing progress. She's lost 10 pounds, and she's exercising regularly, and both of those were her goals. But it took her a minute to figure it out. It took her trying to overhaul everything, only to crash and burn, for her to see that, in fact, a simpler, slower, and more steady approach actually works better. So when we started working together, she was not exercising consistently. She was eating mostly restaurant and takeout food for dinner. She was having a glass of wine nightly, and she decided that she was going to shake all of that up, and she wanted to do it all at once. She wanted to exercise after work and make food at home every night and give up alcohol altogether. And she wanted to start all of those things immediately. And these are all positive changes. All of these changes would move her in the right direction, and I didn't want to talk her out of any of those decisions. But the problem is, knowing what we know about humans, making multiple drastic changes all at once is a setup for failure. We are not wired to handle big change, and especially multiple big changes. But often, when you get started, you convince yourself it's the only way to go. You try to change everything all at once. It's the overhaul phenomenon. So the overall phenomenon, as it sounds, is where you aim to revamp everything. You take on too much all at once and try to tackle your diet, exercise, maybe your drinking too, all at the same time. You are literally wiping the slate and starting completely anew. And often when you do this, it's not little changes. Most commonly, when you go for the overhaul, you go for it in a big way. You don't want to just stop getting takeout. You want to start making all of your food at home. You don't want to just stop being sedentary. You decide you're going to hit the gym 5 days a week and run and lift weights, and you're going to do it at 5 a.m. You don't just cut back on your alcohol. You decide to give it up entirely. It's an overhaul, and it just does not work for most humans. And if you're wondering why, it actually goes back to your brain and habits. So think about what you're doing when you're changing a habit. From a neurologic perspective, you're waking up neural pathways that have been asleep on autopilot for years, only to disrupt them and offer new ones. That is literally what you're doing when you're changing your habits. So meaning, instead of being on autopilot as you pick up a pizza on your way home from work, now you're being very engaged and intentional and planning for a dinner that's made at home. And now you have to think about all the things that go into getting that dinner put on the table, the grocery shopping, the chopping, the cooking, the timing, all of it. And that is a big ask of your brain, and that takes a lot of energy. Changing a well-worn habit requires that you be aware, alert, and engaged so you don't slip back into your default. But remember, your brain is lazy, and it loves the path of least resistance. And the more habits you try to change at once, the more neural pathways you are waking up and the more mental energy that will require from you. So that means you're making a very big ask of your brain when you try and change multiple habits all at once. And most commonly, your brain will revolt and say no thank you and revert to the path of least resistance, which is your old habits. And you'll ultimately find yourself right back where you started because you took on too much too soon. So instead, if you conserve and concentrate your brain's energy on one habit and nail it, your brain will respond more favorably. You won't have quite as much to think about. You won't be causing as big of an energy drain on your brain, and you can focus your attention. So instead of going for an overhaul on your habits, which I do not recommend, pick one thing and nail it. And if you're wondering what that one thing should be, that is where we're going today. So I have 9 different tools for you to consider that will help you change your habits related to eating. These are 9 tools at your disposal to change your habits, okay? I've grouped them into categories and we're going to go through each of them, and I want you to consider how one or more of these tools might fit into your own life. And I want to give you a hint here. As you listen to me go through these tools, think about what would be the easiest tool for you to start incorporating into your life right now, okay? Literally right now. Because here's the other thing I want you to consider as you listen. And this really is a key takeaway to understand about habits and habit change from the outset. So when it comes to changing your habits, in order for it to stick, I need you to find something that you can do even on your absolute worst day, okay? The behavior you take on, the habit that you change, it has to be something that you can do on your worst day. We need to find the simplest, easiest, lowest hanging fruit possible. Because here's what happens. If you choose a habit that you can do even when you've had a day or week from hell and you still do it, then you know you found a winner. When you can still find a way to eat a salad, even though it's 8 p.m. and you're getting home 3 hours later than you planned. And normally this would be a reason to go through the drive-thru and say, forget it, I'll have salad tomorrow. But you don't do that and you come home and have a salad anyway, then you know you're onto something. The habits you change need to be easy. It needs to feel so easy that it almost feels insignificant, but it's not. And more important, you need to be able to prove to yourself that you can follow through with that tiny habit, even when the conditions aren't perfect. Okay, this is huge. So often, when you're considering habit change, you create a set of conditions that need to be met in order for you to follow through. I'll eat my salad as long as I've got time to chop it and it's not too late in the evening. I'll stay on plan when I'm at home, but when I travel, all bets are off. I'll go for a run as long as it's not too cold. I'll get up early as long as I can get 8 hours of sleep. But here's the problem. When is it that you find yourself operating under those perfect conditions? When is it that all the stars align and work ends when it should, and no kid is home puking or febrile, and all of the after-school activities are in the same location and there are no extra meetings added to your schedule? When is it that the conditions are perfect? Never, really. It is really, really hard for all conditions to be operating perfectly in order for you to execute your habit. But sometimes you impose that set of conditions on yourself or on your life or on your schedule that must be met in order for you to follow through. And that, for me, is a sure sign that your habit is probably not going to work, because you could be waiting forever for the conditions to be perfect for you to change. I don't know what it's like in your house during the winter, but here it seems like someone is always sick or sniffly. I don't know that I ever get a full 8 hours of sleep. There is always an extra work thing, or a computer dies and has to be taken to the shop, or there's a dinner out, or a carpool runs late. Name your thing. And the point here is that there will always be something. Always. You can count on it. There will always be something to potentially derail you from following through on your habits. And that is exactly why, when we're talking about habit change, we've got to make it easy. We need to make it so small and so easy and so doable that you can do it no matter what, even when the conditions aren't perfect. So let's do this. Let's talk about the tools that you can start implementing now that will help you change your eating habits. All right, let's go. So first, let's talk about planning. I think of every tool that you've got in front of you, incorporating some sort of planning into your life is going to be a game changer. Maybe that seems self-evident, but if it's not, I want to make it crystal clear. Having some sort of plan in place to guide your nutrition, that works, okay? Planning works. In fact, it is essential. In fact, I can give you words straight from my own client. She said it so well during our most recent session. She said, "I'll just figure it out" is not the answer. And this was because she had been trying and failing at just figuring it out. Figuring it out did not help her when she got to the cafeteria at work, starving at 2 p.m. after not eating since 7 in the morning. Figuring it out also did not help her when she was finally at home with her partner and 3 kids after the after-school shuffle when there was nothing in the fridge and everyone was hangry. Figuring it out did not help her when she arrived at a family birthday party empty-handed and not having eaten. So please have a plan. And I'm going to give you 3 different ways that my clients have approached planning. So first would be to have some sort of system in place for meal planning. And this can be as simple or as intricate as you want. Because really, the idea here is that you're doing more than just creating a plan for yourself. There is more going on here than you simply deciding that you're having eggs and oatmeal for breakfast. The other important thing happening here by creating a plan for yourself is that you're practicing following through on what you say you're going to do. And honestly, that is more important than the details of what you put in the plan, at least at the outset. So I know I've talked about planning many, many times on this podcast, so I won't belabor the point here. But what I want you to consider is this. When you create a plan for yourself, you're eliminating the mind drama of deciding in the moment, what do I eat here? So remember earlier how I mentioned my client realized that I'll just figure it out is not the answer? Well, that's because in the heat of the moment, when you're tired, stressed, caught off guard, hungry, and unprepared, you're going to be in trouble. But if you have a plan, then you don't have to think so hard. You don't have to rely on willpower and just making good choices because we know where that typically leads. When you've got a plan, you practice following that plan. So in the name of making this as easy as possible for you, here's what I want you to consider. Here is how you make this into an easy, doable habit. This is what I want you to do. Plan out your meals for the next day. That's it. Look at what you've got at home, take stock of what's in your fridge, what's in your pantry, and make some decisions. Decide what you're going to have for your breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. And if you have nothing in your house, and if you're going out for your meals, decide in advance what you're getting. Look at the menus ahead of time. And the whole point here is to make decisions using the planning part of your brain that can think about the future and think about delayed gratification. And this is opposed to deciding in the heat of the moment using your unevolved primitive brain that wants what it wants and doesn't care about 2 months from now and whether or not you can fit into your pants. So again, your first planning tool is to write out what you're going to eat for the next 24 hours. That's it. You do not have to include amounts, times, anything. Just write out what you are going to eat and then practice following it. It should take you no more than 5 minutes to do this. You can do it before you go to bed. You can do it before you close up the kitchen for the night. I don't care when you do it, but find a time, create a plan, and then practice following through on that plan. So if it seems like too much of a leap to start planning out an entire day's worth of meals, there's something else you can do instead. So another tool in your toolbox is to decide on how many meals and snacks you're going to have and practice sticking to that. So this tool is especially relevant if you are a grazer. So I've had a number of clients who, when we first started working together, were not really eating identifiable meals. Instead, they were grazing throughout the day, never having any set meals. And that approach is a setup for overeating. So when you're a grazer, it's really easy to have a little bite of this, a piece of that, a serving of this. And often what happens is you justify it because you're hungry and you tell yourself, I haven't really eaten anything today. It's fine. But when you don't eat real meals, you're leaving yourself in a constant state of low-level hunger. You're never really satisfied. And not only that, from a physiologic perspective, when you're constantly grazing, you're constantly triggering your body to release insulin. So remember that insulin is a fat storage hormone. So when you are in a constant fed state by grazing, your body has to pump out insulin to deal with that food, and that puts you in fat storage mode. Now contrast that to eating set meals, alternating with times during the day that you're not eating. So when you're not constantly eating, your insulin levels naturally rise and fall. And when your insulin levels drop, your body turns to fat stores for energy, and then you're in fat burning mode. If you're constantly grazing, you don't give your body the opportunity to get into fat burning mode. So to make this even more simple, when you are constantly eating throughout the day, your body is using that constant influx of food for energy instead of turning to its fat stores for energy. But when you have set meals and snacks, you create natural fluctuations in insulin that are better for your metabolism, better for your appetite control, and better for your overall weight and physique goals compared to grazing all day. So again, in the name of simplicity, decide on how many meals and snacks you're going to have in a day and practice sticking to those. And if you're wondering how many of each, that is entirely up to you. You could do 3 meals. You could do 3 meals and 2 snacks. You can do 3 meals and 1 snack. It is really up to you. And when you're deciding this, here's what I want you to consider. If you make your main meals filling enough with adequate protein, healthy fat, and fiber, you may find that you don't need to have as many snacks. So often, the reason you find yourself snacking is because your main meals aren't filling enough. Maybe you eat like a bird for most of the day to save up your calories for dinner, but that almost always backfires because you end up hungry from not eating enough during the day, and that leads you to graze. So decide, I'm having this many meals, this many snacks, and then try it out. See what happens. And if you find that you're hungry and snacking more than you planned, I would suggest taking a look at the makeup of your main meals to see where you can make them more filling so that you don't feel the need to snack as much. And I'll get to more on how you do that in a few minutes, okay? Another habit related to planning that I want to suggest is food journaling. And again, like meal planning, this can be as simple or as intricate as you make it out to be. And the idea here at its most basic level is that you just record everything you eat in a day. That's it. You can use a piece of paper. You can use the Notes app in your phone. You can use a tracking app like MyFitnessPal. I don't care what system you use, but have a system. And the point of food journaling is to give yourself data. Then you can use the data from your journaling to help you decide where you're doing well and where there's room for improvement as far as your food choices go. So I will say this until forever, but it is really hard to get somewhere different when you have no idea where you're starting from. And this is especially true for your nutrition. Think of it like a map. How do you get to Chicago if you have no idea where you're starting from? Are you starting from Detroit? Or are you starting from San Francisco? The path you take is going to be very different depending on where you're starting from. And I know I'm being a little cheeky here, but really think about it. Don't just tell yourself, I don't eat that much. Don't just tell yourself, I eat healthy, but I can't lose weight. No, with all due respect, I challenge you to prove it to yourself with some data. Collect some data about what you are actually doing. I cannot tell you how eye-opening this can be. So for me, when I started really paying attention to my diet and exercise, and then really zoned in on my diet, I originally thought to myself, I eat healthy. But then I did what my coach told me and I wrote everything down. And here is what it looked like. Breakfast, coffee and a packaged breakfast bar. Lunch, a deli turkey sandwich. Baked Cheetos, because I told myself they're okay because they're baked. An apple and a cookie. Dinner was probably the healthiest and was generally a piece of protein, a veggie, and either rice or potatoes. And my snacks were usually things like pretzels or trail mix heavy on the chocolate. And it didn't even mention all the little bites and tastes of things. I committed to writing those down too. And that is where I realized I was eating a lot of trail mix and peanut butter. And again, I thought I was eating healthy, but it wasn't until I put it on paper and looked at what a day in my life actually looked like that I realized there were loads of things I could do to improve my nutrition. And the more I journaled, the more I saw my patterns. I saw that my breakfast was lacking in both calories and protein. My lunch that I thought was healthy because I had baked Cheetos instead of the regular kind. Well, I saw that I was not eating enough protein. And overall, I saw that I didn't eat enough veggies or fiber. And that is when I started to change how I ate. That was in 2017, and I have not looked back. And my point in sharing all of this is to illustrate that my nutrition, my exercise, and my body, they all changed. But it started with me writing down what I ate. I committed to doing it in real time. I wrote it down as I ate it, and then I just looked at it. I looked at the data I gave myself and realized that what I thought was healthy and not eating that much was actually not true. And that started a cascade that led me to where I am today. So again, to make this as simple as possible, write down everything you eat in a day. No amounts, no weighing, no measuring, just write down what you eat. Start food journaling. Okay, similar to meal planning, this is not a big time commitment. It should take you no more than 5 minutes in total to record what you eat. So now that we've talked about 3 different tools related to planning, let's switch gears and talk about substitutions. So these next 3 tools are small swaps or adjustments that you can make to your current pattern of eating that will add up to a big difference. Okay, so the first substitution you can make is to swap one processed food that you normally eat for a whole food. And it does not matter where you do this. It does not matter what meal it is where you substitute. Just pick something. Maybe you start with your snack and you decide to replace your 3 p.m. bag of pretzels with Greek yogurt and berries. Or maybe instead of French fries with dinner, you have a serving of broccoli. Or maybe for breakfast, you have eggs instead of a donut. So choose something. And remember, you are not revamping your entire meal here. You're not overhauling your plate. Instead, you're choosing one processed food that you eat regularly and substituting something whole in its place. So if you want the cheeseburger, get the cheeseburger. But if you always get French fries to go with it, consider getting a veggie instead. That's it. And really, what this tool does is call in the concept of crowding out. I've talked about this concept a number of times on the podcast, and I'll keep talking about it because I think it's a good one. Crowding out is pretty straightforward. All it means is you prioritize real, whole foods in front of ultra-processed stuff. So I like to think of it this way. It's really easy to eat through a bag of chips in one sitting. It is not as easy to eat an entire bag of apples in one sitting. Crowding out means you fill yourself with foods that offer more than their ultra-processed counterparts. You get more bang from your buck from the whole foods you eat, more protein, fiber, healthy fat, vitamins, and minerals. And because those foods have more to offer, you will fill up faster. You'll eat less. You don't eat a whole bag of apples because the fiber and volume would fill you up before you get through the bag. But the chips, on the other hand, do not have much from a nutritional standpoint. The chips are engineered to be overeaten. So knowing that, choose one thing, choose one ultra-processed food, and swap it out for a whole food. That's it. Keep it simple. Okay, and the next tool I'm going to add here goes along with the idea of replacing one processed food with a whole food, but I'm going to zone in on it specifically because it really can make a huge difference. And that tool is salad. Okay, so consider incorporating a salad into your daily routine. Maybe that means you have a huge salad and a piece of protein for lunch. Or maybe you have a huge salad with dinner. Again, it doesn't matter where you stick it in, just get it in. Okay, so why do I harp on salad so much? Because I know I do. Well, when you choose a salad with lettuce and loads of veggies, you are getting vitamins, minerals, nutrients, you're getting fiber, and you're getting volume. Salad is a high volume, low calorie food. You can generally eat a lot of it, and it's not a ton of calories depending on what you put on it. So if you're someone like me who likes a decent volume of food, salad will offer you that. It will take you a while to eat your salad. And salad is like a blank canvas. You can pretty much put anything on it. There are no rules here. So if you are not someone who eats salad often, consider having a salad a day. And if you don't like salad, fine. How about instead you fill half your plate with veggies at either lunch or dinner? And the idea here, in the name of keeping it super simple, is to simply add more veggies to your diet. So one salad a day is an easy way to do that. But if you're not a fan of salad, pick a veggie and fill up half your plate with it at least once a day. Another change you can make is to find a place to substitute in more protein to your meals. So this one, again, really is a game changer. Honestly, of all the dietary changes that you can make to help you stop overeating, this is by far the tool that will have the biggest impact. And I know I have talked about protein hundreds of times before, but today I want to keep it as simple as possible and offer you this. Pick one meal that you currently eat and increase the protein that you get in that meal. That's your small habit right there. That's it. For most of the people I work with, it's breakfast. Many of the women I work with do not get much, if any, protein at their breakfast. And so that's where I will suggest they start. I'll ask them to look at what they're currently doing and explore where they can bolster their protein intake so they can start their day with a higher protein load. And if you do this, it may mean that you're adding protein to a largely carb-heavy breakfast. So your toast and butter becomes toast with eggs. Your bowl of oatmeal becomes a bowl of oatmeal with protein powder mixed into it. Your bagel becomes a container of Greek yogurt and berries. So do you see what we're doing here? All we're doing is adding protein to a meal that started out pretty light on protein in the first place. Or if you already eat eggs, can you make them even more protein heavy by adding egg whites to them? And I point this one out specifically because this comes up often. I'll have someone tell me that she eats 2 eggs for breakfast, which is awesome. That's great. And that's about 12 grams of protein in total, or 6 grams of protein per egg. But then I'll suggest that she add egg whites to it to increase the total protein she's getting at her breakfast, because egg whites are a source of pure protein without a ton of calories. So if you add a half a cup of egg whites to your 2 eggs, you just bumped your breakfast up to 26 grams of protein, which will most definitely keep you fuller longer. Or if you already have your breakfast dialed in, move on to lunch. So remember my lunch that I was telling you about, my deli turkey sandwich. A typical serving of deli turkey, about 2 ounces, is 9 grams of protein. That's it. So it is no wonder if your lunch typically consists of a deli meat sandwich that you might be finding yourself hungry by 2 or 3 in the afternoon. That's not a lot of protein. So here is another opportunity to adjust or substitute. You could double the serving of deli meat. And I know some of you might be raising an eyebrow at the idea of deli meat, and I'm not here to settle that debate today. Or if deli meat doesn't do it for you, how about going for straight up chicken breast? A 4-ounce serving of chicken breast will get you about 25 grams of protein. And there are loads of other examples. And my point in sharing this is that if you look for ways to increase the protein in your diet, you will notice a difference. You'll feel fuller longer. You'll feel satisfied. You may very well find yourself snacking less. And all of this can lead you to lose weight if that's your goal. And I harp on this because I've seen it work for so many of my clients. Honestly, of all the dietary shifts that my clients have made that resulted in weight loss, this by far is the one with the biggest impact. Adding more protein into your diet, it works. So again, to make this as simple as possible, start with one meal, it doesn't matter which one, and find a way to increase the protein in it. The goal is 30 grams of protein, but if that is too much, aim for 20 grams and then aim to increase from there. So now that we've talked about 3 different habits related to planning, 3 different habits related to swapping or substitutions, let's finish out with 3 different habits related to preparation. So these are habits that you can incorporate into your life to set you up for success, and they all involve some sort of preparation. So the first habit for you to consider is starting some sort of meal prep or batch cooking. Honestly, this habit has saved our house, and it's really how we get through the work weeks without landing at a drive-thru. And before you tell me you don't have hours to spend in the kitchen, please know that is not what I am suggesting. So instead, if you want to get started with meal prep, here is how to make it easy. Decide what your limiting factor is and attack that. And all that means is think about what slows you down. Think about where you get tripped up and then address that. So for our house, it's protein. It takes a bit of time to cook and season and prepare proteins. So now we do it on the weekend. And all that means is that we get a family-sized package of chicken breasts and cook the entire thing over the weekend. And then we use those chicken breasts throughout the week. We might chop it up and stick it on a salad for dinner. We might stick it in a fiber wrap with cheese. We can coat it in breadcrumbs and pasta sauce to make it into pizza chicken. And the idea here is that we have the heavy lifting done in advance. So all we're doing is reheating the chicken later. We're recycling it into whatever meal we're having. And to answer your question, yes, it holds out and it's still good by Friday. I have been doing this for years and I've not gotten sick. I haven't grown a third eyeball. Nothing bad has happened from eating reheated chicken over the course of a week, okay? And if you don't like chicken, pick something else. We also do ground turkey. So we buy 2 3-pound packages of ground turkey and make 1 package into turkey burgers and 1 package into taco meat because my kids love tacos. So we make it on Sunday and it's ready to go for the entire rest of the week. So what if for you, it's grains? What if it's the rice that slows you down? Well, then you know where you have to zone in. Make enough rice at the beginning of the week so you're not having to constantly make rice throughout the week when you're racing from one thing to the next. Or if it's veggies, cut them up in advance. Wash and cut them on the weekend or whenever you have time off to set yourself up for the rest of the week. And this should not be a big ordeal, okay? This should not take you hours. Again, to keep this as simple as possible, start with one thing, whether that's a protein, a grain, or a veggie, and then get it ready. Cook it, chop it, wash it, whatever you have to do, get it ready in advance. I cannot tell you how much time this will save you, and it will make getting your meals together so much easier. The next habit you can take on to set yourself up for success is to tweak your environment. And really what this boils down to is considering what food you keep in your house and where you keep it. So let me put it this way. It's really hard to eat healthy at home when you don't have healthy food in your house, okay? Maybe that's oversimplifying, but I don't think so. If you open your fridge and there is not a single fruit or veggie to be found, that's going to make it hard to pick a fruit or veggie instead of a bag of chips for a snack. If you have no lean proteins or whole grains in your house, it's going to be really hard to pull together a healthy dinner, and it will be that much easier for you to declare, forget it, pizza it is. So please think about not only what you have at home, but also how and where you store it. If you want to eat more fruit and veggies, have them prepared and ready and have them be the first thing you see when you open your fridge. If you keep a cookie or candy jar on your counter, replace it with a fruit bowl. Have protein-filled snacks like Greek yogurt and hard-boiled eggs or string cheese sticks in the fridge and easily accessible. So remember again what we know about habits. If you want to make something a habit, you want as few steps as possible between you and the habit. So make it easy. Make it easy for you to choose a piece of fruit over a piece of candy by having a fruit bowl out on your counter. Make it harder for you to eat ultra-processed stuff by moving it out of plain sight or deciding whether or not you want to keep it in your house at all. If you have trouble moderating yourself around Oreos, you get to decide if it's worth it to you to have them in your house. And if you do have them in your house, you decide if you have them in front and center on your kitchen counter or if you have them in the back of your pantry so you have to go looking for them if you want them. You control your environment to make it work better for you. So I know I've shared this before, but there is a peanut butter chocolate trail mix from Costco that I stopped buying because I had a really hard time just eating one handful. I would keep going back and picking at it, and I would eat who knows how many handfuls of it over the course of a day. And I would always pick through it to get all the good stuff and leave nothing but peanuts and pretzels for my husband. And after doing this for months, I made a decision that I wasn't going to buy that trail mix anymore. I took control of my environment. So again, to make this very simple, decide on one environmental tweak that you can make and make it. So that could be you replace the candy jar or cookie jar on your counter with a fruit bowl. It could be that you have fruit and veggies front and center when you open your refrigerator. It could be that you move the Oreos to the back of your pantry behind your mixer, so you have to do some digging to access them. Whatever it is, choose one thing that you can change in your environment and do it. And last, here is the last habit I want to offer you to set you up for success. And that is have your go-tos. So that means you have either a mental or physical list of meals and snacks that you can rely on and come back to in order to make healthy eating easy and automatic. And to take it a step further, you have those go-tos in your house, like all the time. So I'm sure I've shared this before, but there are foods that are always, always, always in our house. My go-to lunch is egg whites, frozen veggies, and Ezekiel toast. My go-to dinner, if all else fails, is tofu meatballs with a salad. My go-to snack is cottage cheese. And all that means is two things. One, when I'm in a pinch, I resort to those meals. And two, I always have those foods in the house. Those are foods that are always on my grocery list, and they are always in steady supply at home. So if I'm super busy and I have no time to think and I need to pull something together, those are my meals. Those are my go-tos. And here's why this works. When you have go-to meals and you have those things ready and at home, you don't have to spend time thinking about what to do for dinner. You don't have to reinvent meals every day. You just go with your go-to and get it done. And this prevents impulse decisions where you throw your hands up in the air and go to the drive-thru instead. And having a go-to keeps you consistent. It's like having a backup plan. When you've got a go-to plan, it will make sticking to your plan that much easier because you've made the decision ahead of time. You've decided if all else fails, salad and tofu meatballs, it is done. And then you stick with the plan and you reinforce your consistency. You remove decision fatigue because you made the decision way ahead of time. When my schedule turns upside down or when all hell breaks loose at home, this is the meal I will have. So again, to make this as simple as possible, decide on what your go-to meal is going to be. For most of my clients, it's dinner that most often throws them off, so I would suggest starting there. Decide on what that go-to meal is. It should be fast, easy. You and your family, or whoever else is going to be eating it, should like the meal, and you have the ingredients at home all the time. It can be a frozen meal. I don't care. But the point is, it's your go-to, and it keeps you from impulse food decisions that you're not proud of later. All right? So there it is. We just went over 9 different habits that you can choose from in order to start changing your eating habits. So to review, you can meal plan and write out what you're going to eat for the next 24 hours. You can decide on a set number of meals and snacks that you'll have in a day and practice sticking to those. You can start food journaling and simply record everything you eat in a day to give yourself data. You can make substitutions and swap out one ultra-processed food for a whole food. You can start adding one salad a day into your meals, whether that's at lunch or dinner. You can start paying closer attention to your protein by zoning in on one meal and aiming for 20 to 30 grams of protein in that meal. Or you can start setting yourself up for success by meal prepping or batch cooking. Start with one protein, one grain, or one fruit or vegetable, and get it ready in advance so you've got it prepared for the week. You can adjust your environment by having your fridge, your countertops, or your pantry full of healthy food to make it an easy choice. And last, you can choose a go-to meal that you always have at the ready in case you're in a pinch. So that is 9 different tools in your toolbox. And I know that's a lot, but when you really break them down, they're small, simple adjustments that will have a big impact. So think about these tools and make it easy for yourself. Choose one of these 9 habits. Choose what sounds like the easiest tool to implement in your life and do it. Start there. Commit to it. Try it out, mess up, keep going back to it, and do not give up. Because remember that consistency matters more than perfection. And then, once you've nailed one behavior, choose another. Layer these habits one at a time. That's the idea here. My purpose in sharing these tools is not that you go and try to overhaul your diet only to crash and burn. I chose each of these tools because they're small shifts, they're subtle, and they will each move you forward. So this is not about finding a quick fix. This is about finding habits that are sustainable. So as you do this work and layer your habits, you'll notice that they won't be tools anymore. They'll just be part of your life. So decide on your first move. Choose it, own it, and get started today. And if you want help with this, let's go. When you coach with me, you will choose habits and you'll make them your lifestyle. That's how you change your life. Check out my website, send me a message at www.carriehollandmd.com/contact, and let's talk about how changing your habits will change your life. All right? Thank you again for hanging out with me, and I'll catch you again next week. Hey, if you want to build muscle but don't know where to start, I've got you covered. Head over to carriehollandmd.com/buildstrength and download my free guide to help you maximize your strength training. Inside, you'll find the essential exercises for building muscle, plus simple 1, 2, and 3-day workout plans that you can follow with just dumbbells and a bench. You'll also find strength training tips to help you train smarter and see real results. My goal is to help you get strong, and this strength training guide will help you do it. Go to carriehollandmd.com/buildstrength and check it out. Thank you for listening to the Strong is a Mindset podcast. If you want to learn more about how to build both a strong mind and a strong body by eating, moving, and most importantly, thinking, check out carriehollandmd.com.